Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Comic Swag. Now today we're going to be reviewing this book here, DC Top Cow Crossovers. This has 4 stories. So the first one is Batman Witchblade crossover. So let's just go ahead and get an overhead view, flip through a few of the pages and talk about the story a little bit. Okay, so this is the cover. You got all kinds of Top Cow and DC characters, all the ones that would be introduced in this crossover. Look at this. This is an awesome freaking it says cover, so I believe this would probably be a wraparound cover. It's by Mark Silvestri. It says his name right here, Silvestri. Look at that. He does a really solid Batman in my opinion. It looks awesome right here. And here's the darkness. Now, his art from back in the 90s, he did X-Men. No, he did X-Men back in the 80s. And then Jim Lee took over. And Jim Lee kind of copies Silvestri's style with the long legs, thin girls, some of the cross-hatching, but he improved upon it. Jim Lee did it, I feel he did it a lot better, right? When it came to X-Men. Now, to me, Jim Lee, that was peak Jim Lee was on X-Men, 90s X-Men and so forth. And Silvestri here, as you see his art in the 90s, it's a lot different than his art in the 80s. He really knew how to change his style, evolve it. In the 90s, it ushered in the new digital coloring, and he knew how to change his style and make it fit the digital coloring. So I feel like he really benefited from that. As for Jim Lee, his art style kind of stayed the same, so I feel it doesn't look as cool with the new digital coloring. Although it still looks good, I feel with the old school coloring, his art really popped more. That's just my opinion, you know. It's all subjective. We all have different opinions when it comes to art styles and stories and whatnot, right? So one thing is this does look badass right here. 2-page spread. It's another building right here. It's a very gothic look to it. And now look at right here, immediately on this page, you can see here Silvestri is mimicking Spawn. If you ever seen Todd McFarlane's Spawn, he's really trying to be Todd McFarlane right here. He draws Batman with the white eyes and like just a black silhouette. McFarlane did this a lot with Spawn in the 90s. And then you have these outlines. You see these outlines here that are like, they're not perfectly straight, they're kind of wavy. He did that a lot with Spawn as well. So he's very much trying to copy that. That was in. I really enjoy it. Look at here, Commissioner Gordon. He looks real badass, almost realistic right here, right? And look at this last panel here. This guy has he's been decapitated, so you know it's very gory. Look at the heads over here on a platter or something. Very gory right off the start. You're like, wow, this is vicious, and you know the world the darkness is living in, right? That's why you see Batman with this expression that like, wow, like he's never seen something like this before. Look at here, another 2-page spread. So Silvestri, he's excited to draw Batman, and he's showing off. When they do a lot of 2-page spreads, the artist is trying to show off and show his artwork, right? So this one again looks very cool. Some type of explosion went down right here. You see the darkness. These are his like little helpers. When he's in the dark, he can summon them. And look, they're right here with a gat. And then this guy's like tagging graffiti on the wall. The darkness he's writing. So these guys are running amok. Almost like, they look like teenagers right here, right? Some teenage drug dealers marking their territory and whatnot, right? Look at the hat to the back, you know. Very like 90s feel. They almost don't even feel like demons if you didn't see the way they look. That was pretty funny. Look at it here again. When Silvestri draws in the dark, like in a dark room, like here they're in the Batcave, he really gets off. I think he's at his best here. It fits Batman like to a T. I really enjoy his take on Batman. Like I said, I couldn't get enough of this. The art, just for the art, there's a good story. The story itself is still pretty good because Darkness is he's kind of like an anti-hero, so he's almost like a villain because he's a mob leader. So it makes sense Batman will fight him because he fights. Now when it comes to these crossovers, you kind of expect a lot story-wise, especially when they're from 2 different companies and so forth. Here we got Batman, you know, he's always on these towers brooding and scoping out the scene, right? See if he spots crime. And the Darkness appears right behind him with a gun. He's like, hey, I noticed you were checking me out. I know when I'm being followed. He's you know, a mob boss, so he's used to watching his back and knowing when he gets that that feeling that he's being followed or watched, right? So now we go over here. Batman turns around and looks at him. They have a brief conversation, and boom! Batman just slugs him. Leaves him on the ground right here. So this sets up for now there's gonna be a fight scene, and now they have now they've met each other, right? Look at this. Bam! This is round 2. The darkness has came back, slugged Batman, and now this is the real showdown. And Batman has seen this guy clearly has some type of superpower, so he knows, shit, I'm outgunned by this mother, you know? He's like, this guy's not a regular human, he's some type of a meta-human. So again, we got the moon back here. It adds a lot to the environment right there. Again, it has that gothic feel that works perfectly with darkness just as much as it does with Batman. Look at here now, as Batman was fighting him, he loses the fight. He's losing to this guy because he has superpowers. Commissioner Gordon shows up and saves his ass. He turns on this light, and once this light is on, the darkness, his powers, he can only use them in the dark. So once there's light, he doesn't have shadows to play with because he kind of makes the shadows come to life, and he makes these little demons come out and help him, right? So Gordon saved his ass, and technically it kind of ended in a draw, but really Batman lost, and the commissioner came to the rescue. I really like what they did here in this story, because to have Batman beat the darkness when the darkness is much more powerful is just not realistic, right? Batman usually beats more powerful villains. He beats them by planning ahead, following them around, seeing their weaknesses and so forth. He has time to prep because he's very intelligent, right? So here, there's a new villain he has never seen in his life, has no time to prep, and he's outgunned because this guy's more powerful. So there's no possible way Batman would win this showdown, right? And kudos to DC for allowing this to happen, because usually it's Batman, he has to have the biggest balls, always has to win, right? So kudos to them for going along with this and saying, yeah, let's have the darkness win. That makes sense. Really enjoyed what they did there with that. Okay, so what did I think about the Batman Darkness crossover? I felt like it was a match made in heaven. Darkness, Estacado, on his stories, the art by Sylvester is always dark. It's always in a dark cities. He's all about he's a organized crime, right? So it's all about the mob scene. And Gotham, if you're familiar with Gotham and Batman, it's a big mob scene there. There's all kinds of organized crime going on in Gotham. So Staccato fits in Gotham perfectly. And Batman's also in a very dark, gritty world. His art is usually dark as well. So they fit really well together. Also, Staccato, he's kind of like a villain. So he's not necessarily a good guy, right? So it's perfect for Batman to fight a villain, right? So that way there's no teaming up or anything like that. So I thought it was very well done. To me, the story was like an 8. As far as crossovers with 2 different publishers go, it's probably one of the better ones for sure. And the art, man, Sylvester really got off on the art on this. He was meant to draw Batman. To me, the art was a 10. You could tell he was giving it his all, because he had all kinds of 2-page spreads. There was like 4 of them in here. And he even did some of these types of spreads. Check this out, like the kind that go this way. He even did these, right? He did some of these 2-page spreads, then some of these. Man, he was going all out. Like I said, art was a 10. This is Silvestri at his best. Now let's get into the second story arc. Okay, let's start the next story arc. Here is Superman and the Darkness. I'm gonna skip the other story arcs. I'm only gonna talk about these 2, the ones with Silvestri art. The other 2 were kind of bland. I really didn't enjoy them, so I don't want to talk about them too much. These were the 2 better ones, in my opinion. So see, it starts off here, it says Mob War. Silvestri, he draws the darkness, so he's used to writing mobsters and drawing the mob scene, right? Here you see a bunch of guys sitting at the table. Glass shatters and whatnot. And this is the beginning, just right the first page, right? We get introduced to this guy, it's Metallo. So he sees that all these bullets are bouncing off him, so it's not a regular human. He meets up the darkness right here. When he meets the darkness, he doesn't know what type of powers the darkness has, so he sees them right here. Look, he sees all the little creatures come out, and he's kind of like, he says right here, good lord. He's kind of surprised. He wasn't expecting that. So I like that, because he's a new player in town. They don't know much about him, so they're not familiar with his powers. And his powers are very unique and interesting. Like other heroes or villains in the Metropolis or in DC don't have these type of superpowers. They're very different. So these guys are kind of like creeped out, right? Like it's something totally out of left field. Look at him right there. His facial expression. This looks pretty cool. Then you see him right here as Metallo. That looks pretty cool right there. Here's some of the art in the daytime. Now you see Superman here in the daytime. Silvestri's take on Superman, I didn't really enjoy it. That does not say Superman to me, and he's in general not good at drawing like in bright, colorful places or characters like Superman. Right? The coloring doesn't fit. It's too much of a dark tone. Superman is bright, colorful, and this is more of a dark story with him, right? So maybe the story can be dark, but the art, I don't know, this art didn't work for me on this story itself. It felt didn't fit, and it fit the Batman story much better. And here you see Estacado. He's like, oh, I could deal with Superman. He's not like that freak show in Gotham. I like that it references that he's been in the DC universe before, and he was not a fan of Gotham. Metropolis, he thinks is a nicer area, easier to take over and start like a organized crime there, right? Like just a better place to set up shop. Gotham has way too much competition, too much gangs already exist there. Let's look at the two-page spread here. Look at this. It's Superman in his darkness. I'm not a fan of how this looks that much. I mean, it's okay, but by Silvestri standards, I feel like it's not the greatest. And he didn't do a lot of these two-page spreads. He did a hell of a lot of them on the Batman story arc. On this one, not so many. So I know he was way more into the Batman one, and that character just fit his art style and the way he writes stories. And this one, not as much. Although the story was somewhat decent for what it was, you could tell he wasn't as into it because he didn't do a lot of these two-page spreads. And I guess he never really got a grasp on the character of Superman as far as his look. Right here, he looks a little better than in some of the other pages, but he never felt like Superman to me. Story-wise, the way he was written was just fine, but art-wise, didn't do it for me, like I said. And even the darkness here, he's drawn with like a lot less details or muscles. It's like it seems he wasn't as into it, but we all know Silvestri at like 60% is still better than most artists out there, right? Okay, I decided to just cover the Superman Darkness one and skip the other ones. This one was the story was alright. It was like a 7, a 6. Mediocre story, wasn't terrible. The art though, I felt like on this one, Silvestri's art, it doesn't fit Superman. It just doesn't go to me. Like he's not meant to draw a character like that, or even a world like Metropolis. He would have to switch his art up or switch up the colors, right? It didn't work for me on that one. I would say the art, it's not that the art was bad, I just felt it didn't fit the tone of the character. And the other two story arcs, I won't talk about them too much. They were a little bit more basic and so forth. Also, I don't want the video to run too long. But yeah, just for the Batman story, I think this book is worth picking up. If anything, just for that one. The other two stories were maybe like a 5. You know, they were very, like I said, when it comes to these type of crossovers, don't expect much. The bar is never, it's not very high, right? Alright, so hope you guys liked the video. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Other than that, I'd just like to thank you guys for taking some time out of your day to check out the video. And I'll check you guys out next time.